You ever wander through a flea market, just killing time, not really looking for anything? That's what I was doing on that day. It was one of those places filled with random stuff, old records, rusted tools, things no one needed but someone always wanted to sell. And then I saw it. It was an antique mirror, tall, almost 6 feet, with an ornate silver frame. The kind of craftsmanship you don't see anymore. The tarnish gave it character, like it had been around for centuries, just absorbing all the places it had been. I didn't need a mirror, but something about it pulled me in. You know when you see something and it just feels like it's calling you? That's how it felt. I asked the vendor where it came from, and she gave me this strange look before saying, "Oh, it's old. Very old. Seen a lot, that one." She almost whispered it, like she was sharing a secret. I laughed it off at the time, figuring she was just trying to add some mystery to the sale. People love a good story, right? I bought it without thinking too hard about it. But maybe I should have asked more questions. When I got it home, it fit perfectly in the hallway. It was the kind of piece that made the space feel bigger, like it belonged there all along. But from the first night, something felt different. It wasn't anything I could put my finger on, just a heaviness in the air whenever I walked past it, like the atmosphere around it had changed. I'd tell myself it was just the age of the thing. Antique mirrors are weird, right? They're old, they've seen a lot. But this one was different. I started noticing things. Little things at first. Whenever I walked by, I'd catch something out of the corner of my eye movement, but not my own. I thought maybe it was a trick of the light, or maybe I was just tired. But then, one night, I saw something that made my heart stop. I was walking to my bedroom, and as I passed the mirror, I saw a shadow move behind me. I froze. It wasn't my shadow, it was taller, broader. I turned around so fast I almost stumbled, but there was nothing there. Just an empty hallway. I stared at the mirror for what felt like minutes, waiting for something, anything, to happen. But the reflection was normal. I even laughed at myself, thinking I was just being paranoid. Maybe I was seeing things. But the feeling didn't go away. Over the next few days, things started getting weirder. I'd catch glimpses of people in the reflection, just for a second. They were never clear, just shapes, figures moving behind me. Always just out of focus, like they were there but not quite. Sometimes I'd hear faint whispers, like voices echoing from far away. I'd stop and listen, but as soon as I focused on them, they were gone. It was maddening. I tried to ignore it, but the mirror wouldn't let me. Every time I passed it, I felt like something was watching me, following me with its eyes. I stopped looking directly into it after a while. It's funny, the way you can avoid something in your own home, isn't it? I'd just walk by, staring straight ahead, pretending it wasn't there. But it was always there. And it knew I was avoiding it. Then came the dreams. Every night, I'd dream about the mirror. I'd see myself standing in front of it, staring into the glass, but my reflection wouldn't match my movements. It would move on its own, smiling when I wasn't, stepping forward when I stayed still. Sometimes it would reach out for me, and I'd wake up in a cold sweat before it touched me. But the dreams were always the same. And every time I woke up, the mirror was the first thing I saw. Its reflection catching just enough light to make it shimmer, like it was alive. One night, I had a dream so vivid, it didn't feel like a dream at all. I was standing in front of the mirror again, but this time, the reflection wasn't me at all. It was a woman, her face pale, her eyes dark and sunken. She was whispering something, but I couldn't make out the words. I leaned in closer, trying to hear, and that's when her hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. I woke up screaming, heart pounding, the sensation of her cold grip still lingering on my skin. When I looked at the mirror, my reflection wasn't right. My reflection was standing there, staring back at me, but it wasn't me. Its eyes were hollow, lifeless. It smiled at me this wide, terrible grin, and before I could move, it walked away. My reflection stepped out of the frame and walked out of sight, leaving me staring at an empty hallway. I stood there, frozen, not sure if I was awake or still dreaming. But the house was quiet. Too quiet. And the air was thick, like the space around me was pressing in. I turned away from the mirror and ran to my room, slamming the door behind me. I stayed up all night, sitting on my bed, watching the door, waiting for something. I didn't know what, but I knew something was coming. The next day, I decided enough was enough. I was going to get rid of the mirror. I couldn't take it anymore. I went downstairs, determined to take it back to the flea market or throw it away, but when I reached the hallway, the mirror was gone. The wall where it had hung was empty, like it had never been there at all. I looked everywhere, tore the house apart, but there was no sign of it. It was like the mirror had vanished. But deep down, I knew it wasn't gone. It was still there, somewhere, watching me. Days passed, and I started noticing changes in myself. I'd catch glimpses of my reflection in windows, in puddles, and for a second, it wasn't me. It was that woman. The pale face, the sunken eyes. Sometimes I'd hear her voice, whispering my name, soft and distant. And then I stopped being able to see my own reflection at all. Every time I looked in a mirror, in any reflective surface, there was nothing. Just emptiness. It was like I didn't exist anymore. But I could feel her there, watching me from the other side. Waiting. She had taken my place, and now I was trapped. I'm not sure how much time has passed since then. Days? Weeks? It doesn't matter. Time doesn't mean the same thing when you're on the other side of the glass. I can see the world through the reflections, but I'm not part of it anymore. I'm just watching. Trapped in the cold, endless space behind the mirror, waiting for someone to look into it again. So, if you ever come across an old mirror, one that feels just a little too heavy with history, think twice before you bring it home. Because you never know what might be staring back at you from the other side. And if you start seeing things, hearing things, it might already be too late.